Hello students, this is Dr. Shabana Begum presenting a talk on the topic the concept of habitat pertaining to the subject Zoology 5th semester and the paper entitled Environmental Biology and Ecology. The objectives is to define the terms habitat, microhabitat and the macrohabitat and to learn the different life forms that live in it. These are the contents, the introduction of the topic, the biosphere meaning, then the concept of microhabitat, macrohabitat and its types. Introduction. The word habitat is derived from Latin word called habitare, which means it inhabits or it dwells. It refers to a place where the organism lives or where one can go to find the particular animal or plant. It is commonly referred to as the address of the organism. It can be defined as a specific place occupied by an organism, population, or community, may occur in the biotic or abiotic environment. It's also defined as the addition of environmental factors which play a vital role in the existence of individual, population, or community. It is more specific than the environment and is a combination of many factors. It can be as small as a bark of the tree or it can be a burrow. A habitat meets all the environment conditions an organism needs to survive. For an animal, it provides means to find and gather food, select a mate, and successfully reproduce. For a plant, a habitat is providing the right combination of light, air, water, and soil. The examples for the habitats are the worm Arenicola is also called lugworm, which lives in U-shaped tubes in the intertidal zones, which has a funnel-like depression at one end and the string of fecal matter at the other end. Arenicola is used as a bait for fishing. The fishermen will know where to look for it as the home of the worm is easily spotted. Thus, the habitat of the organism describes where it normally found. The other worms like tubifex and oligochaete belonging to the phylum Annelida lives in the running and fresh water which is rich in the organic matter. The malarial parasites live a dual life in the RBCs and liver cells of man. Some organisms like the hilsa fish, that is the herring fish, can live in the fresh as well as marine waters. As a result, they can adapt according to the environmental factors. What is a biosphere? We all know the entire space occupied by the living organisms is termed biosphere. It is divided into four major habitats. The habitats are also called biocycles or realms. These are marine or holobiotic habitat, freshwater or limnobiotic habitat, estuarine habitat, and the terrestrial or geobiotic habitat. All these are termed as macro habitats or general habitats. Let me tell you the meaning of microhabitat. As we all know, microhabitat is the specific area within the macro habitat where the animal occupies for survival. You can also say it's a smaller area where a single species lives. For example, in the marine environment, following species of annelids, that is, the polychaete worms, occupy different regions or different microhabitats. For example, once again, you can say the Chaetopterus. It lives in shallow water within U-tubes. Sabella form a mud tube around themselves above the surface of the sand but under water. Arenicola live in the intertidal zones. Nereis are bottle-dwelling forms and are active swimmers and come to the surface during swarming. The other examples of microhabitat being the rhizobium, the bacteria which live in the roots, and so does the insect Cutorhynchus that is seen in the root galls. The stem borers like bark beetles are seen in the stem. Aphids and leaf biters feed on leaves. Certain beetles and mites feed on the parts of the flowers such as pollen, the ovary, and the seeds. Another example for a microhabitat is the kangaroo rats. Usually these are nocturnal and are active at night. During the daytime, the temperature may rise to as high as 80 degrees centigrade, but within the burrows, the temperature is as low as 25 to 28 degrees centigrade. The humidity also varies between the desert surface and the burrows. The environmental conditions within the burrows form microhabitat of kangaroo rats. Another example being the forest floor, where a general habitat for different species of millipedes, but each species will be occupying different layer of the decaying wood and leaves on the forest floor. Some occupy the surface of the log while others occupy the core of the log. The two bugs like Notonecta, which is also called waterback swimmer, and Corixa, also known as water boatman, which lives in the pond, are found in the same habitat, that is the pond, but vary in food habits. Notonecta is a predator and carnivore, but Corixa is a scavenger feeding on decaying vegetation, that is detritus food. In another example being in Galapagos Islands of South America, 2 to 3 different species of finches or birds live. They occupy and share the common macrohabitat, but their microhabitats differ. Tree finches live on trees and mostly feed on insects. Ground birds of finches are granivores, which feed on nuts and grains and are mostly found on the ground. What are macro habitats? As we say, the habitat of sufficient extent to present considerable variation of environment and contain varied ecological niches and support a large and usually complex flora and fauna. These are the major habitats that include marine habitat, freshwater habitat, terrestrial habitat such as the grassland habitat, forest habitat, desert habitat, etc. Different organisms are seen in different habitats, like the polar bears, Arctic fox, and the reindeers are found in the colder parts of the globe. The camels are seen in the deserts. The wild animals, like the lions and tigers, are seen in the forests. The word habitat is also used to describe the place where the whole community lives. For example, the habitat of cacti will normally be a desert. Similarly, the habitat of the polar bears will be the cold polar regions. Coming back to marine habitat, it's also come under marine ecosystem. These habitats include oceans, seas, which both have salt water. Marine creatures also live in estuaries where rivers and oceans meet and the waters is still salty. The marine habitats can be divided into coastal and open ocean habitats. The coastal habitats are found in the area that extends from as far as the tide comes in on the shoreline out to the edge of the continental shelf. Most marine life is found in coastal habitats, even though the shelf area occupies only 7% of the total ocean area. The study of the sea with all its aspects like the physical, chemical, geological and biological is termed oceanography. The marine habitats are large and thus there are many subfields of marine biology. The sea is large, covering about 70% of the Earth's surface. It is dominated by waves of many kinds and tides produced by the pull of moon and sun. The sea is salty with an average salinity of 35 parts of salt. Chief salts are chlorides, sulfates, bicarbonates, carbonates and bromides of sodium, magnesium, calcium and potassium. The dissolved nutrients are in a low concentration, that is an important limiting factor in determining the size of marine populations. The shallow water zone on the continental shelf is the neritic zone. The zone between the high and low tides is known as intertidal zone. The region of the open sea beyond the continental shelf is called oceanic region, which comprises the region of the continental slope and rise, the bathyal zone, area of the ocean deeps, abyssal regions. The light compensation zone separating an upper thin euphotic zone from a vastly thick aphotic zone. In between these there are secondary zones, horizontal as well as vertical in such waters. The marine communities, the organisms, show great diversity in their form and difficult to list dominance as in fresh waters. The coelentrates, sponges, annelidans, echinoderms, etc. are present in marine waters, but these are absent in fresh waters. The bacteria, algae, crustaceans and fishes play a dominant role in both fresh as well as marine waters. Variety of algae, crustacean, mollusks and fishes is great in marine waters. Seed plants are of little value in the sea except zooxanthellae, turtle grass and eel grass. Some zooplanktons called meroplanktons like benthos, nekton, in larval stages join the planktons. The freshwater habitat, these are aquatic habitats with low levels of salt, that is less than 1%, which include rivers, lakes, streams, ponds, swamps, wetlands, bogs, and lagoons. There are a wide variety of freshwater habitats found on all the continents of the earth except Antarctica. The cycle of evaporation of ocean water, rain, and snow provide these habitats a constant source of fresh water. The freshwater habitats are classified into two types, namely the standing water, also called lentic, example pond, lake, swamps, etc., while the second one being the running water or lotic, that example being river, streams, spring, etc. The study of all aspects like physical, chemical, geological, and biological of freshwaters is termed limnology. Temperature does not vary much due to several unique thermal properties of water. Based on organisms' position in the energy of food chain, the organisms like producers, phagotrophs, and saprotrophs are found in the fresh waters. Based on the organism's life forms or life habits, these are classified into benthos or bottom dwelling forms, periphytons which are attached to other plants, planktons are floating, nectons are free swimming, and neustons are resting or swimming on the surface. While based on the particular region, this habitat they grow like ponds, a lake, etc., are generally distinguished into littoral zone, that is shallow water zone, limnetic zone, that is open water zone where effective light can penetrate, profundal zone, which are the bottom and deep water areas which is absent in ponds. Different organisms are found in the freshwater lentic and lotic communities are as follows. So producers are rooted benthic plants, mainly seed plants and floating green plants like algae are found there. Phytoplanktons are floating in littoral zone as well as in limnetic zone. Colonial forms like volvox, hydrodiction, etc., blue-green algae, etc. are present. The consumers are the animals in this zone like pond snails, damselfly, rotifers, flatworms, hydra, and some insect larvae. The necton organisms in littoral zone area are the adult and larvae diving beetles and various adult hemipterans, dipteran larvae and pupae. Amphibians, turtles and water snakes are exclusively found in this zone. In the limnetic zone, producers are the phytoplanktonic algae like diatoms, green and blue-green algae, along with these green flagellates called dinoflagellates, volvox, etc. The consumers of this zone are the zooplanktons, also called copepods, cladocerans, and rotifers. Common forms are the diatoms, cyclops, etc. Necton animals are exclusively the fishes that feeds on planktons. The lotic communities are the cladophorans, encrusting diatoms, and aquatic mosses. Some are the green algae. Then there are producers, which are permanently attached to a firm substrate. The consumers have hooks and suckers. They stick under the surface, streams, line bodies, and then they will have the flattened bodies, positive rheotaxis, etc. The varieties of animals are found like the freshwater sponges, larvae of caddisfly, etc., snails, flatworms, fish, stonefly, and mayfly. Nymphs are found. The prominent zonation is the horizontal in ponds, whereas it is longitudinal in streams. Zonation of fish is very apparent. It's influenced mainly by gradients of temperature, current velocity, and pH of the medium. What is this estuarine habitat? As we know, an estuary is the point where a big river enters the ocean. It is created by the mixing of fresh water and salt water because of tidal action. It has low diversity of species compared to marine habitat. The common plant species are phytoplanktons, algae, marsh vegetation, etc., while the animal species are the crabs, the oysters, lobsters, fishes, etc. Estuaries are also a major stopover point for migratory animals such as waterfowl and salmon. If you speak of estuary, it is a semi-enclosed coastal body of water with one or more rivers or streams flowing into it and with a free connection to the open sea. These are considered as transitional zones or ecotones between the freshwater and marine habitats. A number of communities are found here, such as macrophytes, Spartina, Zostera, Thalassia, benthic algae. They grow and sessile animals on rocks, sand, and mud. They possess distinct blooms like red tides of large blooms of red pigmented dinoflagellates, Gymnodinium species. There are sedimentary subsystems found here, and there are also planktons and nectons. Lastly, the terrestrial habitat. Terrestrial habitat is a habitat that is found predominantly on land. These are spread out across a large range of environments such as caves, deserts, forests, grasslands, shorelines, wetlands, and mountains. Semi-natural or man-made habitats such as national parks or biosphere reserves also constitute the terrestrial habitats. The common features of the environmental conditions of this terrestrial habitat are the moisture itself becomes a major limiting factor on land. The terrestrial organisms are constantly confronted with the problem of dehydration. Transpiration or evaporation of water from plant surfaces is an energy dissipating process unique to the terrestrial environment. Temperature variations and extremes are more pronounced in the air than in the water medium. On the other hand, the rapid circulation of air throughout the globe results in a ready mixing and remarkably consistent of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Land, unlike the ocean, is not continuous. There are important geographical barriers to free movement. The nature of the substrate, although important in water, is especially vital in terrestrial environment. Soil, not air, is the source of highly variable nutrients. It is a highly developed ecological subsystem. The communities which are present in these terrestrial habitats are the large rooted green plants with various life forms. Herbaceous and woody plants are the main producers, which are named as hydrophytes, mesophytes, xerophytes, and halophytes. Small insects, arthropods, large sized herbivorous mammals, birds, etc., are the macro consumers. The micro consumers are bacteria, fungi, actinomycetes, and soil protozoa. Decomposers are well developed in terrestrial, both in air and soil environments. Birds, mammals, and insects move freely between strata and subsystems. What's the outcome of the study? The identification and analysis of the particular habitat needs a species that has always been a central focus of study and applied conservation in both ecology and wildlife biology. Habitats connects the disciplines of ecology and wildlife biology by arguing for the primacy of habitat in determining where a species exists in nature and in what abundance. Thank you.